Welcome to Gregorian Chat. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
With your hosts, Dom and
Dom.
Dom is a little bit under the weather.
I'm a bit
Today.
under the weather.
Technically, we're all under the weather.
The weather is over me.
No one's above it. So yeah, he's got a cold. You know, he's not doing too well. Doing pretty poorly, in fact. So hopefully we can pull through this one.
Yeah,
It's a bit like the time you were concussed.
It's a bit like that. In fact, my brain is pretty foggy.
Yeah?
So we might be a longer podcast because it'll take me longer to get my thoughts out.
I mean, it's going to be 20 minutes, right? Because they're all 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But anyway, welcome to today's podcast. We're really
Bienvenido.
glad to have so much interaction and so much commenting and stuff
Yeah.
going on our last podcast, which was about yoga.
The Devil's Dance.
Yeah, you
What
should
is
just
it?
watch that podcast if you know, it's a clickbait title.
Yeah.
Yoga. Is it the Devil's Dance?
Look at the content.
Exactly. And then you'll be content with it.
Yeah.
As opposed to, and we'll be content with your answer.
And we'll be contending with everything that's going on.
But the title of today's podcast is
Two rights don't make a wrong. What?
Two Rites Don't Make a Wrong.
But Tom, what does that even mean?
Well, basically, if you hit somebody,
Right.
exactly.
Ah.
Yeah. So, right.
Well, we'll get into that in a bit, but first off, what's this we've got here?
Ooh, well, since you're sick
So I am sick.
in the head,
In
we got
the
you
face.
some lemongrass and ginger tea from T2, which is actually one that they've had on the shelf. They've been serving it in the T2 store for some weeks now.
Actually,
So
last week we went to the T2 store and I sampled some of this and I thought, this will make you feel better.
exactly.
And this week I'm ill.
So maybe your brain told you found something that will make you feel better, and your brain was like, okay, I can afford to get sick now because this will make you feel better. So in short, ladies and gentlemen, don't go thinking things will make you better, otherwise you'll get sick.
That's how it works.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Kind of like a healthy stick drink.
A healthy drink of stick.
I could probably take some lemon, put it in there as well.
Bit of honey.
Bit of honey, yeah.
Mm.
What have you been up to, Dom?
I've been sick, mainly. I've just been like, I took off Wednesday and I was at home sick. And then I started getting sick on the Tuesday. And I came home halfway through the day. And then I just stayed home.
Mate,
Then that's been my life pretty much.
just getting sick and dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because Wednesday you took off. I also took Wednesday off and went golfing with my wonderful wife.
Yeah.
Man, it was a dream day.
I
Slept
couldn't do
in,
it. I
had
was
some
sick.
breakfast.
I couldn't do that.
No, you could not. No, you could not, you sicko.
Yeah.
Last night I had a weird dream. It was like my parents were on this. You are a bit foggy, aren't you? My parents were on some like tour of New Zealand casinos. It was really weird. They were in a tour group with a bunch of just random people.
Do your parents like gambling?
No, absolutely not. Except having 10 kids. That was the biggest gamble they had
Yeah.
too. But yeah, it was just a strange, eh? And I was kind of following them along on this gambling tour.
Did they know you were there?
Well, I don't know. Like, none of this information comes to light in my dreams. But it was kind of funny because normally my dreams are very domestic and just boring.
Well, I suppose they're on a gambling trip and you're just following around. That's the most boring thing you could be doing in that moment. No,
That's right. I'm not even gambling. I'm just kind of like going along
watching them
to
gamble.
watch the demise of my parents. No, good.
No, really.
We should lose all their money. No, my parents would never gamble. That's the thing, which was really weird. But anyway, at the end of it, I met Sufjan Stevens, and it was actually not Sufjan Stevens. It was like a lookalike.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I never remember my dreams.
You should have a dream journal or something.
I don't remember anything.
Oh,
Like, I wake up and I was like, did you dream? No.
that'd be a good podcast. Dreaming.
Dreaming.
Actually, yeah, we do want to do a podcast on dream significance and venting, but that is not what today's podcast is on.
Two rights don't make a wrong.
What rights are we talking about, Dom?
Well, let's get right to the core of it.
No.
Basically, we have in our beautiful church many different rites of, so I think there's like 22 actually,
Wow.
different rites of Catholicism. However, things that are more on the surface level within the Roman Rite is the Tridentine liturgy, or the Latin Mass, and the Novus Ordo. Which, let's just point out the first irony here.
Go for it. Iron it out.
Novus Ordo is Latin
For Wales.
for Wales. What?
What?
No, that doesn't. No. Novus Ordo is a Latin way of saying new order in which you speak English, whereas Tridentine liturgy is an English way of describing
Latin Mass.
You know, liturgy that's done in Latin.
It is pretty funny, actually.
It's ridiculous.
So you kind of already, just with that point, you kind of realise there's something a bit funny going on. Oh, crikey goodness, bless you. Man, I'm just stuck in this tiniest room with this really sick dude.
Welcome to my germs.
I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to scrape past this one. Pray for me that I don't get sick.
And pray for me that I get
well.
better. Anyway, moving on.
So we've got the Novus Ordo, which is like normal mass, I guess, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And or mass that you've grown up with.
Yeah.
And then we've got the Tridentine or the Latin Mass. And oh my goodness, Olivia Watson has just bought us a cookie. Say hi, just pop your head in.
Pop your head.
Hi.
Now so much. Oh man, this is that cookie that I put in there.
Yeah, it's
right?
that cookie. It's that exact
I made this cookie because it had like massive chocolate chunks.
And this cookie,
And here it is.
I didn't.
How's that for service? This is perfect. Thank you so much.
What a
You're
beautiful
welcome.
evening.
You're welcome.
God
Enjoy.
bless.
Yeah. So you don't get that in Latin Mass.
No cookies
No.
in Latin Mass.
I'm kidding.
No cookies
No,
in
but
Novus
wait,
Ordo either.
you know, like at chaplaincy, we have quite a variety of students coming in who attend, you know, different kinds of mass. So some of them who are Novus Ordians. I don't know if
So
that's
the
the thing it is now.
Tridentarians.
Yeah. Tridentarians.
There you go.
Yeah. And pardon me. So what we just kind of we get to see a lot of these different.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call it. Would you call it
Dynamics.
spirituality? Dynamics? No.
Well, yeah. I mean, and because the thing that's like mainly quite talkative about it, what the talking points are is like you get extremes on both ends, and we get like people are like Latin Mass, anything else, anything that's in English is sinful. They don't say it. No one ever said that. But like it's like almost it's bad, it's wrong, you shouldn't do it. However, Latin Mass is the only way to really truly worship God.
Yeah.
And then you get the people like extreme in Novus Ordo is like if you ever speak Latin, you are backwards and you shouldn't be speaking Latin. And
So maybe just you know more about it than me, but just explaining the Latin Mass a little bit.
it's completely different.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
So what are a few elements, like the main things that you'd say are different about it?
well, the obvious differences are the orientation of the priest. He's what's called ad orientem quite a lot of times whenever he's praying something to God. It's like during consecration or any of the prayers that are done to God. He'll turn towards the tabernacle and the crucifix, which you will see in the altar, tabernacle, crucifix. So none of this tabernacle to the side and crucifix the other side. It's all there, and he'll be facing that. The altar will be pushed right up against it. In fact, there'll be no space behind it. There'll be a lot more kneeling for those involved in the mass. When you receive, you will have a plate put underneath your chin. You will stick out your tongue, and you will receive on the tongue, and you'll be kneeling at an altar rail. So a lot more silence. It's a very beautiful service. They don't so much do hymns, but they start.
They're big on hers.
Yeah, hymns and hers.
You heard it here first. If you're female, get yourself to Latin Mass. Okay.
And they use psalm antiphons to welcome you in. And the first time I went to Latin Mass, I went to a high Latin Mass. Don't recommend that as your first because I had no idea what's going on.
Personally, I think you should never be going to Mass high, but whatever.
No, I got there. I got high when I got there.
Oh, really?
So much incense. I almost got smacked in the face for a thurible. Like it came and it stopped right here, and then went back.
Mate.
But yeah, so that's some just main like practical differences. But yeah, it's the longest, I guess, the longest form of the Roman Rite.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Novus Ordo has only been around for what 60 years.
Exactly. And you get people who will only go to a Latin Mass, right? Like I say, and people who will avoid Latin Mass like the plague. So it's kind of like, okay, well, we're thinking like, is there something inherently better about one of them? Is one better than the other? You know, one of these rites, is one of them wrong? And so, because I don't know if I've ever been to a Latin, I think I have been to a Latin Mass when I was very young, homeschooling. But like, it's just not a tradition that my family grew up with.
That's cool.
And so, pardon me, I guess kind of wondering like, there's definitely a difference in some of the focus in the Latin Mass, and like even when you and I were talking about our experiences of receiving the Eucharist, so this is like a huge discussion point, because it's in the Latin Mass, as you said, you receive it straight on the tongue. It comes straight from the priest's hand and the body of Christ.
If you stick out your hands, they will put it on your tongue.
Yeah. So, and the spirituality there, I guess, is like you were saying before, your tongue is the only consecrated part of your body because you praise God with your tongue, and so therefore, you don't mess around with it with your hands. Whereas for me, like I'd always kind of seen it as in the mystery of the Eucharist. First you had in Philippians 2, Christ humbled himself, though he was in the form of God. He did not count equality with God as something to be grasped, but he humbled himself, taking on the form of a slave. And then being found in human form, he humbled himself once again to death on a cross. So there's at least two humblings right there. As Catholics, we believe that then Jesus humbles himself a third time by becoming the body and blood of Christ. So there's a lot of humbling going on there, and it's all, the purpose of that is coming down to us, into our, I guess, our human state. And so the way I've always kind of understood it is, like, why would you shy away from, being able to embrace Jesus' gift? Like, he's done that for us, and therefore, like, we're not trying to earn it by having it on our tongue. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that people are trying to earn it, but just like, that might be a way of arguing.
And I think something that there was an article that's been going around on Facebook recently about the over-intellectualization of Catholicism, and I think this is kind of what happens here. It's like we can come up with reasons, however, then these reasons need to be explained, and we can come up in like so now, like nowadays, you have lots of these Catholic celebrities that are like apologists, like Scott Hahn, Bishop Barron, Chris West, Jason Everett, so on and so forth.
Paul Nines.
Who?
Paul Nines.
Paul Nines, yes. And you have all these apologists, and it's like almost created this new apostolate of people that need to explain the Mass. And don't get me wrong, I love Bishop Barron, Scott Hahn, I love all these things, and but like, the article was arguing that you wouldn't have needed it previously to Vatican II and the changes in the Mass, because the Mass was so, by its actions, by the way that you would prostrate at certain points, by the actions that priest did, by the vestments he wore, by the orientation of the whole church, you couldn't dispute what was going on. Something, like of great majesty, of great awesomeness was happening on that altar, and the correct response is to kneel. And yeah, it was all, and so therefore you kind of were catechized in the Mass, like as you went through it, and but nowadays, everything needs explaining, and it's like part of it's cool because I love reading about the Mass and things like that, but then there's also a part of it's like, then you can be better at Mass than other people because you've read more, and therefore you can be bad at Mass, and if you're bad at Mass and you don't understand the Mass, you draw away from the Mass.
And this is the question. I was like, if you feel that that Latin Mass is more perfect, right? Surely it's that rather than the fact that Latin Mass is the only one that you can go to because that's the only one where Jesus is going to show up.
Yeah,
because to believe that Jesus won't show up at a Novus Ordo Mass because you did the process wrong, I feel is somewhat ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, as in, it's not within bounds. It's not about the process.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
there are certain things which are indispensable.
Yeah, like you have to have an ordained priest that has to say his prayers.
Yeah. But if it's not like, if you don't sway the incense 3 times at the consecration, Jesus isn't going to show up. He's like, nope, I need 3 sways to be swayed to come down. And I'm not wearing suede.
No.
And the priest better not be either.
No.
But so I guess it's like my interest here is like, what is a reasonable line to draw between these two?
Yes.
How do we, and because it's like, I'm sure that there's a lot from the Latin Mass that the Novus Ordo could learn. And then, as you were just saying now, with the over-intellectualization of stuff, I mean, is there something that Tridentine rite could learn from the Novus Ordo?
I feel so. What do I tell you?
I knew this would happen.
Anyway, I feel like because sometimes you meet some people that are sort of like, oh no, you want to keep away from the Latin Mass. It's the old form, and we've moved on from that, and this is more progressive and it's more. Anyway, they say things like that, and I feel like that'd be missing the point. The church has been around for 2,000 years since the beginning of Jesus. The church, as we mentioned in our last podcast, there's that piece of scripture where it said, you don't know what you worship, we know what we worship, because our religion comes from the Jews. That's us. Our religion comes from the Jews, from temple worship, and that's what our history is, and part of that history then morphed into the Mass and the structure that we had, and the Mass that they had. So like all the saints, like Padre Pio.
I saw his doppelganger down in Queen Street the other day. Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway,
gloves on his hands and everything.
Well, he didn't have a stigmata, but.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so all the saints like Thomas Aquinas, Padre Pio, all these Anthony of Padua, they would have had Mass in Latin, because it's been this way since the 4th century, and so like they would have had like the Latin Mass pretty much as it is today. They would have had it. However,
so the Novus Ordo's come pretty late in the game.
Yeah, late in the game.
Yeah.
And so if we are to disregarding that, is disregarding a lot of history, a lot of richness, and a lot of truth. And so I think a good stance to have is like, if you and I'm sure we all do, like, love the Mass because and you understand that it's the coming of heaven to earth, and it's the worshipping of God on Calvary and receiving him in his body and blood. It's like, I want to know more about this. A good place to start, I feel, is let me understand the Latin Mass, because it will inform the Novus Ordo. And I feel like the Novus Ordo was kind of like, why did the Novus Ordo come about? Well, for these reasons, and therefore you look at the Latin Mass and it's like, okay, maybe that's a bit rigid, because if you read the Vatican II documents, it's not talking about changing the Mass.
No,
it's like where we are able, where the change can happen, let's not be too rigid.
Yeah, but it's more about in the hearts, of the people, and being more present at Mass. And that's the thing, I guess. With a lot of people would argue that Latin Mass is fundamentally better because you're using Latin, which is a dead language, and it's sacred in the sense that it's set apart. But then I was like, well, it's also used for scientific names.
True.
And a whole lot of other things, medicine. It's not completely dead.
No.
And so, like, so I guess the real quality of the Latin Mass comes in the fact that there is a reverence that is observed there, that is contained within that rite. And it seems to me that people who go to Latin Mass often do because they have like a special devotion, maybe to Mary, or they have a devotion to the sacrament, and they really want to just be a part of it. If it's happening this way, then I want to be a part of that. We seek after all kinds of things like that in life.
And there's no problem with having a preference. It's like, I prefer liturgy in Latin, so therefore I go to the Latin Mass.
Yeah.
However, I guess the line's drawn where there's no Latin Mass. However, there's 6 Novus Ordo Masses within a 20-minute walk. I'm not going there because it's not in Latin. It's like, okay.
There's a bit of humility required on both sides. So it's like, Novus Ordo have to be humble to learning about the richness of traditional liturgy, whereas the Tridentines might have to be a bit more humble to say, okay, well, like, if I can't find a Latin Mass, I need to suck it up and go and receive Jesus from something which it's not as pretty, it's not as well dressed, but it's still
neither was
Christ.
He on the cross.
Exactly.
But another beautiful thing is when I was travelling around Europe, we go to massive different places, and obviously they'd be in German, Spanish, whatever.
Yeah.
But when it came to the Mass parts, they were in Latin, and at that point I could join in.
Yeah.
And so the Latin Mass is said in Latin all around the world, and I just found that such a beauty, and I think that's something that's awesome about the Latin Mass.
So it's viewing the two of them, helping out each other. Two rites don't make it wrong, guys.
Two rites don't.
Two rites make it so right. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Great tea, by the way.
That's good.
I feel better already.
We'll see you next week.
God bless.
Keep it Catholic.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.
Make sure that you check us out on our YouTube channel, Auckland Catholic Tertiary Chaplaincy.
You can also find us on Facebook, Facebook.com/The Chaplains.
And our Instagram account, which is Auckland Catholic Chaplaincy.
We're also now on iTunes. Just search up Gregorian Chat.
Boom.
That's right.
Thanks for listening.
God bless.